Hi everyone, I'm Rishika and today I'll be sharing with you my TFI Practical 5 Part 1 solution. So let me quickly share my screen. Okay, let me go to my question. This is my question. Okay, first I have to download the Expense It application where I'll actually be storing it under here. Okay, and then I have to use a flowchart where I have to request an input dialog to enter email address and student ID, which would be my variable that I'll be explaining later on. I have to append two entries, okay, which is actually my output, which I'll be showing you all later. And I also have to activate chart on the screen and take the screenshot as well. Okay, and let me quickly go to my solution. This is my solution. Okay, first I have the flowchart, I start the application, and I have input dialog email. So input dialog email is where I ask the person to enter email, and my title is also corresponding to my label, and the result would be stored under the variable called email, which is actually in string type. Okay, the type is string. Okay, now I have isMatch email, right? So isMatch email, okay, is where it's actually a formatting where the user input has to be in a correct format. What I meant by is when I configure regular, right, the regx should be email format and it will manually key in the formatting for us, and it should be exactly one because we only have one user, cannot have multiple of them. And also the result should be check. So check is a boolean where it will indicate true or false. Okay, it's a type of validation to check whether the user have inputted the correct formatting. So for example, for email address, right? Let's say Niam Poly's email address. Okay, normally it will be your student ID at np.edu at connect.np.edu.sg. But some students might forget to put in the at sign, so they just put student ID connect.np.edu.sg. Then it will automatically say the email address wrong. So that is what formatting basically means. Now the variable here, okay, check is Boolean variable type. So now I have the flow decision where the condition is the Boolean true or false. If the check variable says it's false, it will ask the user to re-enter their email address again. But if the user have inputted the correct one, they're able to continue by typing in their ID. So let me just show you how it looks like. This is the email address where they have to type, and this is the student ID they have to type. So the student ID, okay, the label is entering the ID and the title also corresponds to the label. And we have result where this information will be stored under the variable called student ID. And then we have the isMatch ID where the input student ID have to follow the pattern. Okay, let me just quickly click. It will be advanced, and this is my formatting where there's S and there will be 8 numbers, okay, and there'll be one alphabet. So like I said, S, then we have 8 numbers, which is, for my case, will be 10222955, and my last alphabet would be an E. And it should be exactly one because I only want one user's student ID, not many of theirs. And the result will be also Boolean format, true or false, check the format type. Okay. If it's false, they'll ask the user to re-enter the ID. If it's true, it will ask to open application expense. Why? Because that's all. Like we only need to input 2 credentials or 2 information to create an expense report. Okay. So open application expense, okay, is, as you can see, I already mentioned it, email. Okay, when you do this, right, always remember to empty field true. Because if you do not empty the field, right, the default is someone at example.com. When you type in your email address, if you do not tick this, right, your email address and the default email would actually combine together, and we do not want that to happen. So if you don't want it to combine together, you always need to set it to true. And then the user's input will be stored under email. They type into editable text. Okay, that's student ID basically. Student ID also requires us to put empty field true. Okay. Then we have click text create, okay, which I did it just now, okay, earlier. Let me show you again. Create expense report. So you have to use click text. The other two you use type into because you want to type them down. Okay, you want the user to type it down. Okay, you have input dialog expense number. This is the number of entries. Okay, so number of entries basically means, okay, my first entry here, which have been already there, is meal Mexican lunch 12. Okay, the second entry, third entry. So number of entries is how many entries you want. So in this question, we only want 2 entries. So if you're going to do this, if you're going to debug this file, right, you have to put 2 as an expense number. Okay, so the label is enter number of expenses. The result will be stored under the variable called expense num. And is match. Okay, if I go to is match, okay, the digit, it should be digit, and it should be at least one or more. Okay, so one or more basically means like I can have more than one entry. Don't put zero, because if you put zero, right, you won't be able to put any of the entries. You won't be able to put education, and you won't be able to put information technology shown here. Okay. Now, oh no. Now I have flow decision. Okay, is match is also under check. Okay, the boolean, if it's false, we enter. If it's true, continue. So continue means helps to build data table. Data table is expense type, description, and amount, which corresponds to my column headers, expense type, description, and amount. I want them to be in an order. I cannot like reshuffle them. Yeah. Now I have input dialog expense type. Okay, these are the ordering, expense type, description, amount. Okay, but I'm asking this time round, I'm asking users to input the type of expense, and the expense type, title also same. Result will be stored under expense type variable, okay, which is string. And then I have input dialog description. Okay, result will be under expense description, which is also in string format. And then I have input amount, which is also in string format. Okay, now I have add data row. Okay, so all these three, right, we will be put into a data table called input variable. Okay, it's an input variable, you can see here, and it's a data table type. When I click here, okay, this is the ordering, expense type, expense description, and expense amount. So ordering this not for header. The earlier ordering is for header. This is actually for information, ordering the information correctly. Okay, now I have assigned, okay, iterate equals to iterate plus 1. And this is the flow decision. So if the number of iteration, okay, okay, the condition is iterate should be equals to the number of entries I put. Okay, iterate basically means the number of rows. I'm not wrong. So like if you go and put 2 entries, you don't want 3 rows to be formed, right? So yes. So if it's true, right? Okay, you can automatically go to expense type. Okay, if it's false, okay, they will ask to add expense. Okay, add expense. Then there will be expense type here. Okay, they will assign a cell for us. Okay, cell equals to cell val.string is assigning the cell. And then you have type into. So type into basically helps to manually type there. We don't have to type it ourselves. Okay, they will type it for us. Okay, like whatever is inside, the variable called expense type will be manually, like we have to type, okay, and whatever we type will be stored inside a variable, and the variable will be manually typed into the cell by itself. Okay, that's the purpose of this. Row 0.2 string, okay, is to declare the cell positioning, okay, where you want this information to be typed into. Then we have to assign cell well equals to cell well plus 1, where you got the second, okay, the second row. And then we have no, second column, I meant. We have second column. Okay, then we have cell equal to cell val dot toString description. Okay, where you overwrite description. Okay, I'll talk about overwrite later. Okay, this is a positioning, and then you assign and you do the same thing for amount. Okay, so it's like basically a pattern. As you can see, it's like this pattern. Okay, what I wanted to tell you is empty field should be true again for this case because I want the description and expense type to be overwritten. If I don't put true, the information will be conjoined with the existing info placed here. Okay. Now I have click push button. Okay. Click push button is after everything has been written inside. Okay, I want to click the view chart, okay, to see the graph of the data. Yeah. Then after that, I have take screenshot and I also have save image. Okay, let me go back to my for each again, right? There is this cell, right? So cell is my variable, okay, which is known as string. And I just put it as a default value of 16. Then we got cell value, which is also 16. And always remember to put iterate 1. If you do not put iterate equals to 1, right, what's going to happen is it will start from 0. So when you put the number of entries, or I want the number of entries to be 2, right, you will end up getting like around 3 rows because they will include like 0, 1, and 2. It will start from 0. So you end up getting three rows, which you do not want to have. You do not want it to happen. So you need to specify that it starts from 1. Don't ever start. If you don't put anything, it'll start from 0. So remember that. Okay, so the cell value should be in integer 32 format, which explains why you need to convert it to string because a cell is actually in the string type, right? Okay, what I wanted to remind you all is you need to click edit selector. Not for this, but for the type into, you need to click edit selector and you need to replace it with this X cell. So how do I do it is just click this and put cell. Okay, you need to do this. Okay. Yeah, just remember to do that as well. Okay, so after that, I'll take a screenshot. Okay. Screenshot is basically UI part dot. Okay, let me show you. It's UI part dot core dot image. Okay, yeah, that's how you can find the data type. Took me a while also. Okay. Then I have save image. Okay, so let me quickly debug the file. I will enter my email address. Okay, if I put right the wrong email address, I just put this. They will ask me to re-enter the email. Why? Because of validation earlier. So I'm putting s10222955 at connect.np.edu.sg. Okay. Now I'm going to enter student ID. Okay, remember the formatting. If I forget to put alphabet E, okay, they will ask us to re-enter. Okay, so I need to put the alphabet and I put okay. Now I have to enter, okay, I have to re-enter my ID. Yeah, why? Because as you can see, I only have 7 numbers. Earlier I mentioned it 8 numbers. So I forgot to put 1 number. Okay, now it should work. So it overwrites it and creates the report and you have enter number of entries. So in the question, I have 2 entries, which is education and information technology. So I put 2. Okay, my expense type, the first one is education based on the question and is tuition fees. Tuition fees, and I have $100. And then we have information technology. Let me just put in IT for short. Okay, and I have laptop 200. So overwriting again. Okay, and then it clicks add expense. There you go. The chart is open. So when I go back to my screenshot area, because I remember I put take screenshot and save image. Okay, you have this particular image shown. Okay, now um, that's the end of my practical 5 part 1. Thank you.